So go out to free skate, get to ideate with some cool folks. And then as well, our next event for STLX will actually be on HCD Agile and Data Engineering, led by the wonderful Lisa Bruce from 1904 Labs. Look out for that on Thursday, August 26th, and we'll be posting that to Meetup soon. Okay, and then Holly, I will let you introduce Amanda.
Yes, so this is the fabulous Amanda Andres. Let's see, I have things in my way, sorry. So Amanda is a solutions consultant and business anthropologist, and she focuses on exploring the anthropological mindset needed to address the 21st century's business challenges. Over the last 13 years, Amanda's career has taken her from working in advertising, software development, and innovation consulting. And she is one heck of a smarty pants and a former coworker. And we are absolutely thrilled to have her here. Yay!
Off you go. We're good. Okay, are we ready, everyone? Make sure I've got everything going on. I'm not going to be able to see anyone.
I'm going to do my ASL.
Okay, here we go. You can see my screen. Here we are. Dear participants and organizing team, it's an honor for me to speak today about doing anthropology in business. My goal is to share a few techniques with business anthropologists that we use to add value, and to have you spend time doing one of the activities we anthropologists love, reflecting on what's familiar, what's strange, seeing humanity in its rich shades of gray, and thinking about what it all means for human relations now and in the future. My name is Amanda Andres. I've been living in St. Louis, Missouri, and working in business for 13 years. I'm passionate about research, design, and solving human problems. I grew up in Nashville, Tennessee, but instead of reading the rest of my bio, I really would like to share a story today with you about one person who has shaped who I am today, my mother. When I was young, my brother and I attended public school in Nashville, Tennessee. My brother tested very well on a standardized assessment test. He was put into a lottery, and he was then invited to attend a magnet public school for science and engineering. However, the public school bus system did not take kids to and from magnet schools. The schools were far away. My parents both worked. And so my parents had no way of getting him across town to this better school. This was a shared problem. Students all across Nashville would be invited to attend a magnet school, but have mobility issues getting to these schools from all around Nashville. And so my mother called their parents of all of the students and generated a map of where they all lived. I remember seeing the corkboard up along our kitchen wall with a map of Nashville spread out and tacked up. And she would be on the phone in the evenings calling and talking and splattering push pins across the map. Green, pink, red, black, blue, all representing the different areas where students lived. She put together a proposal for how to get the kids with mobility limitations to and from school. And she presented it in front of the school board. And then she went and presented it in front of the Nashville Metro Transit Authority bus system. She had to show that there was a great enough need to start new routes and add on to existing routes. Her proposal was approved, the routes were generated, a student rate was negotiated, and children all across Nashville were able to attend a school that was previously out of reach. My mother saw a need within the Nashville community and worked hard to solve the human problem of getting children to and from schools. I am who I am today, in part due to my mother's influence. She instilled within me the behavior of looking up, around, and out at community's most pressing problems. But more importantly, she instilled within me the drive to take action. And there she is, she's laughing in the picture. That's my brother. And it's still going on today. The whole program is still in effect. And you can kind of see how all of these magnet schools are still being able to get kids all around Nashville today. Very proud of her.
3 cheers for Barbara.
Yes, Mrs. Miller is awesome. But she's definitely instilled a lot of the ability to not only think of myself, but everyone in the community and focus on those most pressing problems. And so we're going to talk a little bit about business anthropology today. As some of you may know what it is, some of you may not. And so we're going to try our best to make business anthropology, this strange subdiscipline, feel more familiar. We're going to have a breakout where I'll ask you to do that thing that anthropologists love to do, reflect. So you're going to reflect probably in pairs or in a couple of small groups. We're going to go through some anthro methods and theories that can help you as a UX professional or whatever you're doing today in business, help you see the wider ecosystems in which your products and services might be situated in, and help make your artifacts a little bit more representative of those ecosystems. We're also going to talk about workplace culture and how company culture really needs cultural anthropology. And so using a critical lens to look at the people and the projects that you're working on and where they could be more successful. And then we're going to end with another group reflection to kind of tie that all together. And so there's going to be a lot of reflecting going on and sharing. And then at the end, we'll do a group discussion. You can talk amongst yourselves. You can ask questions to me, and we can have a nice evening or morning, whichever time zone you're in. Okay, so let's start with making business anthropology feel a little bit more familiar. So what the heck is a business anthropologist? We're going to do a really quick thumbs up, thumbs down activity, hopefully, if we can do that. There's a reaction panel on your bottom taskbar, and it'll say reactions. And so I'd love for you to look at that. There should be a thumbs up, a thumbs down reaction. I'd love to know who knows a business anthropologist and who doesn't know a business anthropologist. And you could just give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and I cannot see. So Holly or Al, you would kindly share.
We have a check mark and an X, not a thumbs up and a thumbs down. How about that?
There we go. That works too.
So green check mark for I know a business anthropologist, red X for I do not, on the count of 3. If you 1, 2, 3. Ooh, okay. Majority do not, Amanda.
Yay. Okay, that's fine. That's completely fine. That's what I was expecting. So we're good. For those that do not know a business anthropologist, I hope you will take note of some of the individuals that I am going to share their names and some pieces of their work today. I hope that you will walk away and go explore some of their body of work a little bit more deeply. And for those of you that do know a business anthropologist, or you are an anthropologist yourself, I hope you may recognize some of these phenomenal human beings I'll be showcasing during the lecture, their quotes, and maybe you'll learn a little bit more about these individuals or a couple of new names. But it is completely fine if you don't know a business anthropologist, because according to LinkedIn, they have no idea either. Like, there's no bloody idea who a business anthropologists are. There are only about 220 of us officially on LinkedIn. You can see there are 23 million consultants, 27 UX researchers. There's 24,000 anthropologists strong, but you can definitely see how we're a very small group of people. The truth is, you may be working alongside a business anthropologist without knowing it. They just might have a different job title. So you probably have a couple of business anthropologists sprinkled into user researcher, or the culture anthropologist role is another job description or job title that is can be juxtaposed with that. The truth of the matter is, human resources departments and job titles, they're really not keeping pace with the industry. So they're just not simply flexible enough. And so we definitely need to work with HR on our job families and our job titles. to aid in like the broader awareness and understanding of this discipline, but it is completely fine if you are among the many of not knowing a business anthropologist. So let's look at where you're going to find business anthropologists today, those 220 or so, and the 2,700 cultural anthropologists, where you might find them in business today. So they're working in three main areas, and they're adding value when it comes to human relations in these three main areas. You've got your design anthropologist. They're definitely thinking about what people need in a product. So in technology, in chairs and lamps and smart thermometers, in Thor's hammer, in Disney experiences. So design anthropology is very strong, and you will find business anthropologists there. You'll also find them in consumer culture, in marketing. And so if you think about how different brands need to go into different markets around the world, you might need a business anthropologist to kind of go out there and look at consumer culture, or look at material culture, or the study of symbols. And so there's a rich body of knowledge around color theory and what color means in certain, or what words mean. And so you're going to find a lot of business anthropologists aiding in advertising and marketing efforts. And then finally, my favorite part is organizational culture. So the study of groups inside business and how they work and what are the different meanings around their rituals and why they do what they do. So studying businesses themselves and the people work inside. You're also going to find business anthropologists working in other departments of businesses. You'll find them in operations. You'll find them in strategy. You'll find them in HR. Some people even separate international business. If you think about global companies, the workspace in England may be completely different than the workspace in Japan. And so you're not going to really be able to understand what works until you're kind of in the thick of it. So you can have a lot of culture shock, and things that work in one area of the world might not work very well in another area of the world for many reasons. But wait, hold on. Some people don't know what a business anthropologist, they don't know any. So you might also not know what anthropology is. So I want to quickly just check the pulse here and level set. So anthropology is the study of groups, culture, societal behavior, values, and content from the view of the people themselves. And I'm saying from the view of the people themselves because that is something that anthropologists really do. They take on that insider view, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But you can kind of see how in the slide I have that it's looking at behavior that's related to all of humanity, where everyone shares the difference between a wink and a blink, or some behavior that may be specific to a group. And that could be what this means in India might not be what this means in America. And so different types of specific group meaning could be culturally significant, but not related to all of humanity. And just in general, at a societal level, how humanity can be explained and what's going on now, in the past, in the future. And business anthropology is a subdiscipline within anthropology. So there's medical anthropology and all of these other different subdisciplines, and business anthropology is just one of those subdisciplines. And I encourage you, if you'd like to learn more about business anthropology, there's a website, because a lot of us 220 strong are trying to foster more awareness on this subdiscipline. Businesses are often drawn, especially to anthropology's principal research method, ethnography, because it enables firms and companies to really understand customers, partners, suppliers, and their organizations better. And so it really is about that deep hanging out, spending long periods of time with groups of individuals in order to see how things happen in the lived experience, in order to better explain human practices worldwide. Yes, so let's talk about a little bit about what they are doing, because business anthropologists are doing two main actions, and I want to make sure that we're aware of both, because that's what we're here to do today. Business anthropologists are and the anthropologists are achieving value and impact through reflexivity, reflection. That's what we're going to be doing a lot of today. Reflexivity means that you are not only looking at what is happening from the point of view of the insider, the person that you're studying, you're trying to write a very thick description of the patterns of behavior, the rituals, the rules, the relationships they have with others. And you're trying to sort out those structures of significance for those groups of individuals. But you're also taking a wider lens and you're trying to then translate into what does that mean from a cultural perspective. And the best person within anthropology that is able to say this very eloquently is Clifford Geertz. He says, man is an animal suspended in the webs of significance he himself has spun. And so we're talking about tacit knowledge that you're not even aware of, that's shaped your world. And so we're looking at the insider view of like their point of view on why they're doing what they're doing and how they're doing and what it means. But we're also trying to understand the things that people can't articulate, the things that are just embedded within society or in that cultural meaning that really has a different lens. And so we're trying to take on more of an outsider view. And so there's this kind of switching between the insider view and the outsider view and those different lenses. So not only what group meaning means, but also the wider societal and cultural meanings. And you can kind of see off to the right, this one thing that business anthropologists have to do. It's not enough that we would go and explore cultures and find the meaning. We also have to help the business look back at themselves with an anthropological lens. And when I say anthropological lens, anthropologists today are really trying to take off their glasses. So if you think about any human being, we have our own glasses, figuratively, and it's the lens in which we see the world and operate in our own worlds and navigate through it. And that is normal to us. But what is actually normal is not normal to the majority of people around us. And so what anthropologists are doing all the time is trying to be aware that we're wearing these lenses of ethnocentrism, that, you know, what I find is normal is not actually normal. We're trying to take them off ourselves and aim for cultural relativism, which is more of a relative view of the world that is not biased, that is not grounded in our own ways of thinking. And so while we may never ever be able to shed the lens, we may never be able to take them off, we might be able to like wipe them a little bit cleaner and kind of see through that lens to see really what's going on a deeper level. And we have to help the business do that as well. We have to help them take their lens and realize they're wearing them and wipe them a little bit cleaner and hopefully take it off if it's possible. But what can happen when we're able to take off that lens or see through it is sometimes we can reveal some very uncomfortable truths about our own world that might not be what we really thought the world was like. And so what business anthropologists are really doing are producing that crucial knowledge about customers, trends, and then the organizational culture so that businesses can make big decisions and improve lives. Okay, so we talked a little bit about what a business anthropologist is, what they're doing. And so now I want us to practice reflexivity and thinking about ourselves. And so we're moving on to a reflection. So there are times when people are behaving in ways we don't understand. And so I want you to think and reflect about maybe something in your life today that happened or something in the past that you can really think of where someone was behaving in a way that you didn't understand and it was just very weird or unfamiliar or strange. And I want you to think about 4 questions. These 4 questions are, how did you attempt to understand their point of view? what did you do? And so I want you to think about those little things that you did to understand their point of view. And then the second thing I want you to think about is how you looked back at yourself with a really critical lens based upon what their point of view was. And after you've done that and list out how you did that, I'd like you to think about how often you're doing number one, trying to understand someone's point of view, and how often you're spending time doing number two, looking back at yourself very critically. And we're going to put you in breakout groups. I have no idea, Holly, Al, if you'd like to share how many people are going to be in each room, but I'd like you to spend time just sharing a little bit about how you would answer these 4 questions. And we're going to put 10 minutes on the clock. And yeah. And then I've got the reflective cycle. This is Professor Graham Gibbs' reflective cycle. And so if you need a visual reference, you can think about, you would describe how you went about their point of view or how you went about your critical lens and all of the other little things on this. And then there's a link I'll put in the chat window, just in case you would like to visit this website for more prompts. But yes, we ready to go into
there are 2 people in each room, and I am going to click the button to open all the rooms, and you should see an invitation to go to your room, unless your name is Al or Amanda
or
Andres. Spanish Amanda is going to her room. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, and then we'll call you back at the 10-minute mark. Oh,
all right. So we're going to keep going. What was the benefit of doing that? If you're a person who works in UX or an adjacent field, empathy is really important, even if you're outside UX. By better understanding the people we work with, the more success we're going to have working with each other and delivering positive outcomes. And so I hope you took away something out of this. If you feel comfortable, you're more than welcome to, in the chat, share what you learned during your reflection, but please don't feel as though you have to share. It's only what you're comfortable with. To keep it going, moving and shaking, we're going to move on to this next section, which is using anthropology methods and theory to make artifacts more representative of wider ecosystems. And so that's what we're going to be talking about. I would take a guess that some of you may have reflected and you're spending drastically longer understanding people that are maybe strange or unfamiliar to you than you are looking back at yourself with a really critical lens. And that's completely fine. One of the reasons why businesses need to hire business anthropologists or have them on staff is because sometimes we're really blind to our own blind spots. It's not employees' fault. It's not your fault at all. It's just a consequence of working in business. We can get tunnel vision. We're only working with specific types of coworkers or a specific group of a company. And so our lens on the world or on the company could be very partial. We could be, like Patricia is saying, as she went in her field work and she was reflecting on what she found in the workplace, whereas that everyone is kind of sitting in their own little space and they only have a partial view and they're making decisions based upon that partial view. And so the problem really is that sometimes businesses are so narrowed in that they know their business too much and they're struggling to look up, look around, look out, and they can get lost in a fog. And so culture is in a constant state of shifting. So even if you do feel as though you've performed research and you feel like you understand a culture or a trend or a group of people, that's being constantly renegotiated. And culture is more like gum, where it's being stretched and molded in different ways. And so businesses hire business anthropologists to help them continuously decode that culture. So as Jillian Tett says in her new book, Anthropologists are just as likely to be found studying the Amazon warehouses as they are to be studying Amazon jungles. And I know a lot of us don't know anthropologists. It's completely fine if you don't know business anthropologists, but business anthropologists have been working in and for business for around 97 years. Sometimes we're so narrowed in, we don't know that there are people hiring business anthropologists, IBM, Google, all those big companies, Coca-Cola, Kit Kat, all of that. So you've got this kind of group of people that are coming in and helping businesses. So how can we make the strange familiar? This is where we're headed on what can you as a practitioner do to help make the strange familiar. It's all about studying the business and the customers and the suppliers and the partners in an ethical way. So you can't be doing this unethically. You have to completely come in and study in a very ethical way. You can focus on the need that the business has, but you got to be able to read between the lines and see some of those things that the business might not be able to see because of their tunnel vision. Where you're going to be doing this is there. I've got a source here in the presentation if you would love to look, but Twig and Fish is a consultancy. Zarla and Mina created a really good framework for walking people through to do this kind of reflective exercise so that you can study the business. It's an activity, it's a workshop, and you can really pull out how all of the different groups are focusing on different things and what are the questions that if you had the answer to, the business would be able to make progress. And so definitely this is one way you can start to make the strange familiar, is to study the business itself. Another way you can start making things wider of the ecosystem is to take a wider view. And so using a holistic approach and seeing the wider ecosystems at play to see the similarities that are cutting across the culture that you're studying will help you make the kind of take a look at your personas and go, wow, why do we have a persona for this type of job role and a persona for that type of job role when there are certain cultural behaviors or rituals that are cutting across all of these groups. And the example I have for you is showing how people document things. So you can see in the left image, there's a picture of an office where someone stores documents for something that they did for a customer. And then in the middle photo, there's a calendar. There's some kind of calendar page with a number listed across, and that's documenting something. And then you've got to the picture to the right, papers that are going incoming and outcoming in boxes with documents stored inside of it. And off all the way to the right, you can see a long wall with boxes of documents stored. And so if you start to take a wider ecosystem look at what's happening inside of a business or within a service experience, you can start to see how all of the parts relate to each other, not just from a service journey perspective, but the cultural rituals that are happening inside of a company that are not job role specific and everything to do with a company. Taking a holistic approach may not just be looking across a massive ecosystem like a business or a workflow or an experience. It may also be about the different ways in which you study the business. So a holistic approach could also translate into a mixed methods approach. So you could use ethnography and do some participant observation across the business and spend time at each different field site. But you could also do netnography, and you can do in-depth interviewing and focus groups and case studies, and you can do a content analysis. And so there are different methods that you can use in order to try to get a more holistic perspective on the ecosystem. And so this is a way of looking at the meaningful practices that people do today in businesses. And just because I don't want to just say like, this is what you should do, go and do it, without giving you any kind of resources. So cultural anthropologist Mike Youngblood and a colleague of his, Benjamin Cheslock, just released back in March, user ecosystem thinking, this toolkit in order to kind of understand and start seeing in shades of gray, rather than these kind of, I'm a user, I'm a non-user, I'm a person who's a chef, I'm a person who's a manager, and to start looking at more of archetypes and what kind of roles or rituals someone is playing within a service experience. And so what Mike says really well is that you have to see the behavior in the terms of its complexity. Things are not black and white. They're very shades of gray. And so you can't label someone as a user or a non-user anymore, or a front office employee and a back office employee. You need to start seeing the different ways in which someone has power, or the relationships, or the roles and responsibilities, and those different things that are all actually very interconnected to each other. And so what Mike does a really good job of is showing the interconnectedness. And so this is a book it walks through. There are cards that represent different archetypes to help you think in a more ecosystem way. And then there are activities as well. So I highly recommend you buying this. And if you don't have it and you're in the St. Louis community, you can always come and hang out and socially distance, and I will share my copy. Okay, second way in which you can start making the strange familiar. And so it's not enough that you're taking a holistic approach and you're looking and you're using different methods and you're trying to see how the system is connected and you're looking for those similarities. You can take it a step further and you can utilize something called social theory. And social theory, there are hundreds of social theories out there. People have spent many years observing human life and documenting it in its rich, thick description. And so as you can kind of see, life in organizations may year after year be based on the variations of the same exact games. And so Eric Byrne, the transactional analysis is an example of social theory. And in his book, he goes through a number of different games people play in the workplace. And you might not even know you're playing this game, but humans are playing games all the time. And so you can see earlier you saw those documents that were in the front office and in the middle office and the back office. And that was very similar. Like people are storing these things for some reason. Why are they doing that? And if you look at it from a transactional analysis and the game theory, you can see that on the business level, you can look at the communications of the business and they're saying everyone's a risk manager and we want to make sure that we've got all of the I's dotted and the T's crossed, and we want to make sure we're in good standing with the regulator. But what that communication and that message and that value translates into are employees on a massive scale playing the game of cover thy ass because they don't want to play, now I've got you, you son of a bitch, with the regulators. They definitely do not want to be out of faith, have to play that game with the regulators. And so you can kind of see that it may look as though there is a front office and a middle office and a back office, and our personas or our blueprints can show those individuals and what they're doing. But the commonality that is very cultural to the entire specific group are some of the games that they're playing. And so you can start making that culture visible through documenting photos or service journeys and blueprints. But you also have to be able to really describe what's happening in everyday life and the complexity and the differences and decode it. Okay, now we're going to move on. So we talked a little bit about some of the methods and tools that you might use, taking a holistic approach and using social theory and looking more at the ecosystems. Now we're going to talk a little bit about making the familiar strange. And so you can see here, we've got partnerships and projects. We want them to be successful. We're working in businesses. We're working for businesses. We're being asked to do things. And sometimes we're not looking back at ourselves with a very critical lens. And so that's really what I want to push onto you today, is the need to do this. Peter Drucker, he's a legendary management consultant and writer. He says culture eats strategy for breakfast. And so it comes down to the whole, it's not the 95% of the ways that our groups are similar. It's that 5% where things aren't going right. We're holding on to a different ball and we're protecting that ball, but we're protecting different things. We have different goals. And it's in the way things happen in a workplace, where really company culture needs a business anthropologist to come and decode what's happening in these projects and products that are just simply something's not going right. So yeah, we've got, so here we go. Making the familiar strange. So one way, Elizabeth Bryady and Gary Ferraro have an amazing book if you really want to dive deep on, the cultural dimension of businesses. They have a chapter all on the lenses of understanding culture. And these lenses can be applied directly to a business setting. So if you're a professional and you're realizing that people are not on time, or business meetings are going way longer and they're talking about their family, and you just want to get to the chase and keep it business. Those are very different types of cultural lenses that are that are coming to work. And so you can use these different types of dimensions if you look them up online afterwards, or if you know them, to kind of decode what might be happening in the workplace. And the power here is not about a thick description of like why your coworkers or your partners in business are different. It's the cross-cultural comparison. It's understanding how one group values this and another group values something else. And so what you end up having is you need to have like, okay, here's what's going on within the workplace, but you have to then take the step of when you've got something going wrong, how are we going to negotiate that culture? And I've got a couple of examples down where how you might move forward once you know what the conflict is. And so compromise by one group to meet the other where they want them to meet them, meeting in the middle, creating something brand new that everyone thinks is a slightly different, or further siloing or delegating out so you can kind of avoid cultural effects. Those are different ways that you can start to make things that are familiar to you start to be strange. And so I've got an example here from Elizabeth Bryady, just to kind of, if you're struggling to go, I don't understand, what is this meaning? How would I use this? So you can use meetings and correspondence and emails and Slack threads and Skype and all of these different ways that people communicate with each other. You can use those as field sites and you can analyze them from a cultural lens, like what's going on. You can start seeing the shades of gray. And so here you can see that Elizabeth Bryady was working at GM, and she was in these meetings for this program where GM said, we want to come up with the standard car seat. Like, what is the standard car seat that can be put in all of these different models? We can save money. But things weren't going right. They couldn't make decisions. They would make a decision, but then the decision would be unmade. And so everything was just not going well between these partnerships. And so Elizabeth started to document, like, what is a meeting to this group versus that group? Because meetings aren't all relative. Everyone has a different definition of what a meeting is and what the purpose is. And there's also different relationships on how we make decisions. And so you can kind of see that there are way different ways of who has the authority to make a decision or what matters most when we're in a meeting. And when you have different groups that have different meanings and what is important to them, you're going to have some big differences, and those are going to show up in your projects and your products. And so navigating through them, definitely people have no idea to some degree what their decision-making model is because it's normal to them. And so you have to start thinking about how can you make that normal to you actually sound very familiar by looking at other groups that are different than you. And it's really okay. Like, it is completely fine if you're having problems in the workplace. These issues are common. You're going to have lack of communication. You're going to have differing agendas. And so you can start looking at the company with a researcher, with the UX lens. You can start looking at the nested subcultures and the cross-cutting cultures that are really going on, and how each one of those is its own unique group of dynamics that could be living inside of organizations all around us. Yeah, and I'm going to go back to Jillian Tech because she's got amazing quotes. There's an AI hidden all around us, anthropological intelligence. And so there's definitely something about, AI, but there's also something about anthropological intelligence, that really anthropological thinking methods can help us figure out what's happening, not only within the ecosystems in which we're serving, but also the business themselves. And I'm not going to go through this, but I definitely want to leave time for you to look through this. Business anthropologists can really be the agents of change in the business world, from using the sales floor. So watching what's going on the ground floor where customers are navigating, and what's going on, and how can you see the signals and the smoke signals of what's really happening inside of a business just by looking at how service is delivered. Ken Erickson and Elizabeth Bridey have an amazing study that is in the book that I mentioned about an intimate apparel forum, and they went to the sales floor, and they were like, yeah, bras don't talk to panties. And they were talking about how the bra group doesn't talk to the panty group. And they were very shocked. And they're like, well, why does that matter? And the person at the sales floor is like, well, women want matching sets. And so you can start to see the sales floor maybe amazingly aware of where the organizational conflict is happening. And then you can go explore the different lenses to understand why that is happening. But you can use a number of different ways. You can enlist, if you are just one business anthropologist, you can start enlisting other employees as researchers. And a lot of the things that anthropologists do complement well. Project managers have to list out the stakeholders, and anthropologists are looking at kinship maps and network maps and actor network theory. And so a lot of these things, Jillian Tett says, are like salt. They just complement an existing skill set. So it's definitely something you can pick up on. But I encourage you to look through Patricia's work and Karen Ho's work and Elizabeth and Ken's work, because it's really fantastic. Okay, so we're going to do one more reflection, just because I hope I haven't put you to sleep yet. Where is my reflection? I feel like I had a reflection card. I don't know where it is. I've lost it. I'm going to just list out what the questions are, because I've lost my slide. The questions are, you're going to go back into your breakout rooms, and I want you to think about a team or a person that you're really butting heads with inside your company, or a partner that you're working with. And I want you to think about what is challenging about working with that individual or with that partner group. And then, so that's the first thing, if you need to write it down. And then the second item I'd like you to think about is, if a Martian were to land down in between you and the partner, what would they see? How would they interpret what's going on? And so we're going to put you back in breakout rooms for another 10 minutes, and you're going to answer those two questions. Yes, thank you.
Okay, so I'm typing if a Martian landed, what would they say? Okay. So with a group or a team, you're butting heads with what's the challenge, where's the challenge, right? And then if a Martian landed, what would they see or say? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and open the rooms, and you probably have a different partner than you did last time because I needed to recreate the rooms. So surprise, new best friend. Okay. Ready, set, go. So we're in business,
Cool.
Miss Amanda, whenever
Okay.
you are ready.
All right, so I hope you were able to take something away from the reflection on what your challenge is and what a Martian would think if they came down and saw you dealing with this. So I hope you were able to reflect a little bit. The truth of the matter is everyone's strange. You know, everyone's a little unfamiliar, and we can really learn from each other. So today, I hope I have instilled within you that is the same desire my mother distilled within me, the desire to start looking up, around, and out at the community's most pressing problems and the company's most pressing problems, and the drive to take action. And so it's not necessarily enough that we're solving problems for ourselves and businesses and doing a really good job for businesses, but also helping our coworkers. And so leaving you today, I just want to share out epicpeople.org. This is a group that helped me tremendously. Definitely everyone's strange and we can learn from each other. So I encourage you to tap into that global community because there is an anthropological toolkit and people and just professionals that can help you just exponentially. And the community of practice and the knowledge that's being gained and shared can only help each other. And I really want to thank Jules and Joseph and Holly today for helping me put together this presentation and dragging me when I didn't want to put it together. It's only good because of my support. And then we're going to just end with Q&A. I know we're at time. I completely understand if you have a life that you want to get back to, but feel free. I'll stay on for 15 to 20 minutes if you want to stick around and have a discussion and talk.
So feel free to unmute yourselves. We can go ahead and stop the recording. So